Can you able to see the screen? Okay, okay. See, if you see the syllabus, yeah. If you see the syllabus, the third unit consists of three subparts, right? So it is having deadlocks, process management and synchronization, and inter-process communication mechanisms, right? So today we are starting with the deadlocks concept, right? So in this deadlocks, we all know, we already know the definition of deadlock, right? What is a deadlock? You can say it's a permanent blockage of the resources, yes or no, right? A process is holding a resource and waiting for some other resource that was already held by some other resource, some other process, right? So in that way, if the resources are blocked, then we can call that situation as deadlock, right? So in deadlocks, we'll see the system model, what are the characteristics of the deadlock, right? That is deadlock's characterization, or else you can also call them as necessary conditions for the deadlock. What conditions will lead to the deadlock situation, right? Then we'll see methods for handling deadlocks. So what are the different methods we are using for handling deadlocks, right? So in that we'll see deadlock prevention techniques, deadlock avoidance techniques, and deadlock detection and recovery. So prevention means, you all know, prevention is better than cure, right? So we'll make sure that deadlock never happens, right? We are trying to prevent the deadlock situation. So how we are going to do it is, as I told you, we have 4 necessary conditions for the deadlock, right? So if any one of the condition happens, definitely there is a chance for the deadlock. So we will make sure that those necessary conditions are not happening, right? Those necessary conditions are not happening. So for that we have some protocols. How we are going to do it, we will see in the deadlock prevention. Are you following me? You are getting my voice, right? Shall I continue? Yeah, I got it out in between, right? So in the deadlock prevention, we'll try to make sure that deadlock never happens. Deadlock avoidance. So we are trying to avoid the deadlock. That means we are making sure that, right, deadlock is not happening. We are trying to avoid the situations, right? Then deadlock detection and recovery. Okay, deadlock happened. What to do? We have to identify that there is a deadlock. Then we have to follow some recovery mechanisms for the deadlock, right? So that is about the. So this is all about the deadlocks, ma. So today we try to complete this deadlocks concept, if possible. Then we have process management and synchronization, right? So what is meant by process management? So in the second unit, we discussed about what is a process and all, right? So in the process management and synchronization, so we mainly discuss here about the shared resources, right? The critical section problem. So what do you mean by this critical section? Critical section is nothing but it's a region where your shared resources will be loading, right, truncating, and more 2 or more processes are trying to access to the data, right? So that is the reason we call that area as the critical section. So we'll discuss about what are the problems with the critical section, right, and how to see when 2 or more processes are accessing to the same resources. There we should make sure that they both should be synchronized, right? So we'll discuss about the synchronization here. And for that, we use some data structures called semaphores and monitors. We'll be discussing, right? And what are the problems of synchronization, right? Like we'll be discussing here about the producer-consumer problem again, and dining philosopher problem, right? So like this, we will be discussing about the process management and synchronization, right? And now inter-process communication mechanism. So we already discussed about inter-process communication, yes or no, right? for that we discussed two methods. What are those? Shared memory and message passing, right? So here we'll see in detail about the inter-process communication mechanisms, right? So that is how inter-process communication between processes on a single computer happens, and how this can happen between the processes on different systems. If they are in the single computer, they will be communicating through the shared memory. If the processes are in different systems, they will be communicating through the message passing, right? Then we'll discuss about these pipes, FIFOs, message queues, and shared memory about inter-process communication. So this is all about your unit 3. So this is the description, right? So now, if you see the PPT here, so this is completely discussing about deadlocks, right? So in the deadlock, what we are going to learn? So we are going to learn about deadlock problem. We'll see what is the deadlock. Then we'll see the system model. Then we'll see deadlock characterization, or you can call them as necessary conditions. Then methods for handling deadlock. So in that, prevention, avoidance, detection, and recovery, right? Now, so the main objective of this chapter, in this what we are going to learn here is, so to develop a description of deadlocks which prevent sets of concurrent processes from completing their task. So what happens when deadlock happens? Your processes will be aborted, or they will be blocked, right? So your job will not be done, right? So that we are going to learn how the deadlock is making this. This is preventing your jobs from completing. Then we also discuss about a number of different methods for preventing and avoiding deadlock in a computer. So as I told you, we have prevention protocols, and for this avoidance we have 3 algorithms, right? Safe state algorithm, we have resource allocation graph algorithm, and bankers algorithm. These 3 we are going to learn in the deadlock avoidance, right? So what is the deadlock? So I can say deadlock is a set of blocked processes, each holding a resource and waiting to acquire a resource held by another process in a set. So when I can say a set of processes are in deadlock, when I can say a set of processes are in deadlock, when a process is holding a resource and waiting for a resource which is already held by some other process. So if you take an example of 2 processes, P1 and P2, and there are 2 resources, R1 and R2, right? Try to understand. I have 2 processes, P1 and P2, and resources R1 and R2. Here, P1 is holding a resource R1 and waiting for R2. Try to understand. P1 is holding a resource R1 and waiting for R2. In the same way, P2 is holding a resource R2 and waiting for R1. And here, P1 will not release R1 until unless it will get R2. P2 will not release R2 until unless it will get R1. Is it possible? No. Here, both are in the waiting state, and those resources will never be released. Those resources are blocked. Those resources are not in use. Those resources are not available for the use. They are in the blocked state. That situation is called deadlock, right? So in a real-time scenario, you can see the deadlock situation like this. See, here you have a bridge where only one vehicle can pass, right? Only one vehicle can pass. That means traffic is possible in only one direction at a time. But here if you see the vehicles from both directions, right, they entered on the bridge. Now they cannot cross the bridge, yes or no, right? The left side vehicle will not go to right side, the right side vehicle will not go to left side, right? Both are in the blocked state. Here, how this situation can be solved? One of the vehicle has to go back. That means if you take in your computer, to avoid the deadlock, or else to come out of the deadlock situation, one of the process has to be aborted, or one of the process has to be killed, right? You are getting me, right? See, If you see this, traffic is only one direction. Each section of a bridge can be viewed as a resource here. Each section of the bridge can be viewed as the resource here. If a deadlock occurs, it can be resolved if one car backs up. That means preempt resources and roll back. That has to be rolled back, right? Several cars may have to be backed up if a deadlock occurs. Why? Because if this has to go back, the back vehicles also has to go back if they are in the queue, that they are waiting, right? So here there is a possibility for this starvation also, right? That means continuously they will be in the blocked state only. But when it is coming to real time, we are discussing the deadlock situation, but in real time, most of the operating systems do not prevent or deal with the deadlocks. Deadlock, they will never bother about. If deadlock occurs, one of the process will be preempted or else one of the process will be restarted. It will be stopped and it will be restarted. That's all, right? It will be handled in a simple way. But for your knowledge, to know about the deadlock, what is deadlock, how this happens, to know about this, we are learning about the deadlock concept, right? You are getting me, guys? Understood? Yes, what is the deadlock? Yes, okay, ma. So you can write the definition for the deadlock like this. Yes, a set of processes is in a deadlock state when every process in the set is waiting for an event that can be caused only by another process in the set. So here the event can be resource acquisition and resource release, right? So that is the definition for the deadlock, right? So if you see the deadlock system model, if you take the deadlock system model, so a system is consisting of a finite number of resources. You can call them as R1, R2, R3 up to Rm, right? So this set of resources has to be distributed among a number of processes. So here you can categorize the resources into two different ways, ma. The physical resources and logical resources, right? Physical and logical. Physical resources means what? Your printer, DVD drive, tape drive, memory space, CPU cycles, all this can come under the physical resources. So logical resources means semaphores and mutex locks on files. So when we are discussing about the synchronization, right? So we will be knowing about this. What is semaphore, what is mutex and all we will be learning. So these are the data structures, they will be running, right? And those data structures will allow you to access the critical section, right? So those are called logical resources. So here you can divide the resources into two types, physical and logical. So physical means your CPU cycles, memory, IO, printer, everything, tape drive, disk drive, all this will come under physical. Logical means your semaphores, mutex, all this comes under logical. And when it is coming to the resource type, each resource is having set of instances. What do you mean by instances? That means you can have more than one instance of a same resource type. That means your system may be connected to two or more printers. So at the time I can say my system is having the resource type printer of two instances. You are getting me? Instances means the number of copies, the number of resources of a single type are available, right? Now, each process utilizes a resource as follows. So how it is going to utilize a resource, right? First it will request for the resource, then it will use the resource, then it will release the resource, right? You are getting me, right? Request means what? The process requests the resource. If the resource is being used by another process, then the request cannot be granted immediately. It has to wait for some time. Now, use means after resource is allocated to the process can operate on the resources, right? Example, what I can say, I have a resource type printer. I am taking a print. That is nothing but I am using the resource type printer. Now release. The process release the resource. Now after the use, it has to release the resource, right? So we will be having some set of system calls for requesting and releasing the resources, right? For device system calls, if it is using any one of the devices, output device, input device, or whatever, right, then we will be using the system calls as request release. That is not there in the PPT. I'm just telling you. If it is requesting for the semaphores, then wait and signal for request and release. If it is using mutex, acquire and release. If it is for the memory system calls, allocate and free. If it is for the files, open and close. So these are the system calls that are used for the different resource types for requesting and releasing the resources. If it is normal device system call, that is request and release. If it is semaphore, wait, signal. If it is mutex, acquire, release. If it is memory system call, allocate and free. If it is a file system call, open and close, right? So we all know that you have a system call for, we have a system table which will maintain the operations and its equivalent system call. So when any user is performing any operation, that will be converted to the system call, and that particular system call will be happening, right? Now, deadlock characterization. So deadlock characterization, you can also call it as necessary condition, right? Necessary conditions. So we have 4 necessary conditions of deadlock, right? So a deadlock situation can arise if the following 4 conditions hold simultaneously in a system. So if these 4 conditions are happening, right? If these conditions are happening, then we can say there is a deadlock. First one is mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, and circular wait. What do you mean by mutual exclusion? Mutual exclusion means only one process at a time can use the resource. Only one process at a time can use the resource, right? So in that case, if other process requests the resource, the requesting process must be delayed until the resource has been released. So mutual exclusion has to be satisfied, right? That means only one process at a time can use a resource. Now, hold and wait. What do you mean by this hold and wait? Hold and wait means a process must be holding a resource and waiting to acquire additional resources that are currently being held by another processes. Hold and wait means a process holding at least one resource and it is waiting to acquire additional resources held by another process. That is hold and wait. Now the third is no preemption. That means you should not forcibly take a resource from a process. Voluntarily, the process has to release the resources after the use, right? That means a resource can be released only voluntarily by the process holding it after that process has completed its task, right? It cannot be preempted. The last one is circular wait. Circular wait is nothing but I have a set P0, P1, P2 up to Pn. I have a set of the processes P0 to Pn, right? And here the waiting processes, the waiting of the processes should be like P0 is waiting for a resource held by P1 and P1 is waiting for a resource held by P2. That way Pn minus 1 is waiting for the resource held by Pn and Pn is waiting for a resource that is held by P0. This situation is called circular wait, right? A set of waiting processes must exist such that P0 waiting for P1. That way, if this is there, then we can call that situation as circular wait, right? So these are the 4 necessary conditions of the deadlock. So this is very, very important, ma. Sometimes you may also get it for the small answer questions. Now you please tell me what are the 4 necessary conditions of the deadlock? Please respond, guys. What are the necessary conditions for deadlock? You want me to randomly call a number? Yeah. Mutual exclusion, hold and wait. Okay, very good. No preemption, circular wait. Excellent. Now I will ask some roll number, right? The roll number has to answer. Roll number 6W. Roll number 6W, you please tell me what do you mean by hold and wait? Roll number 6W. 6. Excuse me, guys. 6W is there. 6W is not there. Okay, I'm marking 6W absent. Now, one more number. 7R. 6W, you are there. Tell me what do you mean by hold and wait? What do you mean by hold and wait? Don't waste the time, ma. What do you mean by hold and wait? You can unmute. Type చేయడం టైం పడుతుందంటే unmute చేసి ఆన్సర్ చేయి. 7R నువ్వు చెప్పమా లేకపోతే 7R is there. 7R is there. Yes. Process must be holding at least one resource. Okay. And waiting to acquire additional resources. Okay. Antena? What is called hold and wait? Seven R. You're there? And waiting to acquire additional resources. Okay, ma, but there is a continuation point. Waiting to acquire additional resources. Now anyone can answer. Yes, from other process that are currently, yes, very good, that are currently held by other processes. Yes, 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 very good. So what do you mean by no preemption? Roll number 7R. I'm calling that number since 7 R. Absent betna 7 R ki.
Yes, miss.
Cheppamma.
Can you repeat the question, ma'am?
Yes. What do you mean by no preemption? You can type, ma. Uh, uh, Excuse me. Anyone can answer now? What do you mean by no preemption? Am I audible? A resource cannot be released. A resource cannot be taken away by a process by force. Okay. From a process. Cannot be taken away from a process. A resource can be released only voluntarily by the process holding it after the process has completed. Yes, very good. Right? Circular weight. Circular weight. Oh my god. Please type your answers. Let me have some water and come. I don't know. I'm feeling.
Ma'am, you are muted, ma'am.
So do I need to explain resource allocation graph?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You're, I thought it is unmuted. Okay, fine, no problem. Right, coming to this, the necessary conditions are clear now? Yes. Okay, let's start with the resource allocation graph. So this resource allocation graph is used for the identification of deadlocks in the system, right? The resource allocation graph is used for the identifications of deadlocks in the system, right? Now, when it is coming to a resource allocation graph, I can represent the graph. See, how you are going to identify the deadlock using the resource allocation graph, we will see later. But now you see how a resource allocation graph can be represented, right? How a resource allocation graph can be represented. So the resource allocation graph is used for the identification of deadlocks. I already mentioned this. Now, if you represent the resource allocation graph with G, G is consisting of the set of V comma E. V is the vertices, E is the edges, right? And it is a directed graph. Now, here the set, the vertices V is partitioned into two types of nodes. Vertices can be partitioned into two types of nodes. You can call them as processes and resources. P is the processes set, R is the resources set, right? The vertices. We can call P vertex, R vertex, right? So P is consisting of the process set. P1, P2, Pn are the set of processes. So these P1 to Pn are the number of processes that are running in the system. And resource set is represented as R1 to Rm. This is nothing but it will represent all the available resources in the system. All the available resources in the system, right? Now, E means edges, right? So here you have two types of edges, request edge and assignment edge, right? Edges are again categorized into two types, request edge and assignment edge. So request edge means it is a directed edge from the process to request. So if you see an edge from process to resource, Pi to Rj means process Pi is requesting for a resource type Rj. It is requesting for an instance of the resource type Rj. You're getting me? Here Pi is requesting for the resource type and it is in the waiting for the resource, right? As request chasing, it is in the waiting state and the resource is not allocated to the process yet. Now, assignment edge means what? It's a directed edge from resource to process. That means here the resource is allocated to the process. Rj to Pi means the resource type Rj, an instance of the resource type Rj is assigned to the process type Pi. You are getting me now? Right. Now, when you see the resource allocation graph, there the processes can be represented in circles. The process is represented in circles and the resources are represented in rectangles. And let's consider a process is having more than one instance. Then those instances are represented as the dots inside the rectangle, right? You are getting me? Those dots are represented inside the rectangle and Pi is requesting the instance of Rj means then you can have the arrow or directed edge from process to request. If the process is holding a resource, then the edge is from resource to Pi. So why it is from the first dot is that instance of the resource type Rj is allocated to Pi. It is clear? Now, it is the simple example for the resource allocation graph. Example of, see here, you have 4 resources and 3 processes. P1, P2, P3 are the processes, and R1, R2, R3, R4 are the resources. And if you see the instances, R1 is having only one instance, R2 is having two instances, R3 is having one instance, R4 is having three instances. So what do you mean by instances, guys? What do you mean by instances? What do you mean by instances? See, in this diagram you are seeing R1 is having only one dot, R2 having two dots, R3 one dot, R4 three dots. What it means? Please respond. Resources గురించి అడుగుతున్నానమ్మా. R1, R2, R3, R4. We have three processes, P1, P2, P3. We have resources, R1, R2, yes. What do you mean by instances of the resources? Why P1 is having only one dot? Sorry, why R1 is having only one dot, R2 having two dots, R3 one dot, R4 three dots. What it means? Copy of resources. Yes, the number of copies of the resources, right? So let's consider R2 is the resource type printer. What it represents? Two dots inside R2 means two instances. That means your system is connected to two printers. Yes. If the printer is having four instances means your device is connected with four printers. So it can take the print from any one of the printer. You're getting me? That resources are available. Now clear what do you mean by instances, guys? Yes? Yes, okay. Now, example, this is the example. So if you see PI, we have an arrow from PI to R1, P1 to R1. What it means? You have an arrow from P1 to R1. What it means? In this resource allocation graph, I have an arrow from P1 to R1. That means P1 request R1. Yes, P1 is requesting for R1 and it is waiting. R1 to P2 means R1 to P2 means no, holding kadamma. P1 to R1 arrow ante entante P1 is waiting for R1, not holding. Yes. Now P2 to R1 means R1 to P2 means who answered? Yes, Jagdish. P2 holding R1. Yes, now listen carefully. I am explaining this graph. Here P1 is waiting for the resource type R1 and R1 is already given to P2. Right? And here P2 is holding a resource, P2 is requesting for the resource R3, which is already held by P3. Now, if you see here, the resource R2, I have two instances of R2, right? One instance is allocated to P1 and one instance is allocated to P2, right? So, do you find any circular weight here? Do you say there is a deadlock in this graph? See the graph carefully and tell me, is there any deadlock in the resource allocation graph? I told you, no, resource allocation graph is used to identify the deadlock. No. Why? Because there is no circular weight, right? So if I can find the circular weight, I can say, right? Yes or no? Right? There is no circular weight and there is no hold and wait for all the processes. If you take P3 is holding a resource, but it is not requesting for the resource. right? Hold and wait has to be applied for all the processes. If it is satisfied with the all the processes, then you can say there is a deadlock, right? You're getting me? Now, I'm giving one more example with a deadlock. How I can say there is a deadlock? Here I can find a circular weight. What is that? P1, R1, P2, R3, P3, R2, P1. And you have one more P2, R3, P3, R2, P2. Right? You are getting me? If you see this diagram, there is a deadlock because I can find a loop. If you find a loop in the resource allocation graph, right, there is a possibility that there is a deadlock. There is a possibility that, right? When I can say there is a deadlock, when there is a circular weight or where there is a loop, when I can clearly say that is when all my resources are having only single instances of the resource type. Right? When all the resources are having only one instances and there is a loop, I can clearly say that there is a deadlock. But if your resource is having more than one instances, if your resource is having more than one instances, even though there is a loop, there cannot be a deadlock. Why? Because see, printer ఒకటే ఉండి two processes are one process is holding and waiting for some other resource, then it will never release the printer. But if I have two printers, at that case any one of the process can release, no? If one is blocked means the other can release or it cannot be released. That is the reason I am telling you that if I have more than one instance of the resources, if I have more than one instance of the resources, right, then there is a possibility for the deadlock. I cannot confirmly say that there is a deadlock, right? So here there is a loop and there is a deadlock. I give you one more example. There is a cycle, but there is no deadlock. Why? There is a loop. P1, R1, P3, R2. But I am telling you there is no deadlock. Why? Because here P2, P4 processes are not satisfying the hold and wait because it is not waiting for any other resource, so that after the use it will release R1. Once the instance of the R1 is released, P1, it will be assigned to P1. Right? Because R1 is given to P1, right? After the use, it will release both R1 and R2. Then after that, P3 will be completed. P4 will be completed like that. So this will never enter into the deadlock state. You are understanding this? Here we have a loop, but there is no deadlock. Why? Because here I have more than one instance of the copies and the processes, some of the processes are not hold and wait processes. Clear, guys? Yes. Now, so that's the same thing what I told you now. If graph contains no cycles, no deadlock. But if a graph contains cycle means if only one resource, one instance per resource type, then deadlock is possible. But if you have several instances per resource type, possibility of the deadlock is there. There is a possibility. Clear? Take these points. These 2 points are important. Make a note of these. Right? No cycles, no deadlock. Contain cycle, but the resources are only one instance, then deadlock. But if you have more than one instances, there is a possibility for the deadlock, right? So this is not in your syllabus. Yes, methods for handling deadlocks. So how we are going to handle the deadlocks, right? Normally ensure that the system will never enter into the deadlock. That means you should be using deadlock prevention techniques. We should make sure that will never enter into the deadlock. It is possible with the deadlock prevention and deadlock avoidance. Allow the system to enter the deadlock, then recover. You can also do like this. It happened. It entered into the deadlock, right? We are unable to identify it. Then after entering into the deadlock, until we are unable to identify the situation that there will be a deadlock. Because in a system, number of resources will be there, number of processes will be there, and sometimes the system may enter into the deadlock. Even though we take the prevention techniques, right? We use the avoidance and all, then it may enter into the deadlock. But it is important that when the system entered into the deadlock, you are supposed to be identify that there is a deadlock in the system, and you are supposed to recover from the deadlock situation, right? And last, it is very simple one. What you have to do is ignore the problem and pretend that deadlock never occur in your system. This is used by most of the operating systems, including Unix, right? You ignore deadlock occur aina kuda, you don't make any what I can say, don't bother about that situation, and don't do any actions for the deadlocks, right? Generally, what happens is your system will be, your application will be restarted, and that can be taken care by the operating system. So this is the third method. First is make sure that it will never enter. Second, it entered, okay. Then you have to make sure that your system is recovering from the deadlock. Third is ignore the problem, pretend that deadlock never occur in the system. It is mostly used thing in the most of the operating systems. Now let's start with the deadlock prevention, right? So how I am going to do this deadlock prevention is restrain the ways request can be made. అంటే మ్యూచువల్ ఎక్స్క్లూజన్ ఉంది, అది అవ్వకుండా చూసుకోవాలి. మ్యూచువల్ ఎక్స్క్లూజన్ అయితే డెడ్ లాక్ అక్కర్ అవుతుంది కదా. సో వీ షుడ్ మేక్ షూర్ దట్ this condition is not satisfying. Hold and wait also, we should make sure that, right, this hold and wait should not happen. Then preemption also, we should make sure that no preemption happens. No preemption is means we should make sure that this condition is not satisfying. For that circular wait also, we will do the same thing, right? చూడండమ్మా, there are 4 necessary conditions. ఆ 4 necessary conditions అవ్వకుండా ఉంటే ఏంటి, we are preventing. Yes or no? Right? You want 5 minutes break? Yes or no? You want a break? Please respond, ma. You guys are there? నిద్రపోతారా ఏంది?
Ma'am, we've already.
Right. Now we will see the deadlock prevention techniques, right? So we have 4 necessary conditions, right? Guys, am I audible? Yes? Yeah. So if you take the 4 necessary conditions, right? So what do you mean by deadlock prevention is, deadlock prevention provides a set of methods to ensure that at least one of the necessary condition cannot hold. See, we have 4 necessary conditions, no? So if all the 4 necessary conditions are there, then you can say that there is a deadlock. By making any one of them false, we can make sure that there will not be a deadlock. You should understand this. See, 4 necessary conditions means if any one of the condition is there, it is not that there is a deadlock. all the 4 conditions has to be there for the deadlock. If 4 conditions are there, then there is a deadlock. Right? So deadlock prevention means by making any one of them false, we can make sure that there will not be a deadlock. By making any one of them false, we can make sure that there is no deadlock. Now we will see the possible ways for making them false. We'll see the possible ways for making the necessary conditions false. We will see them one by one. Right? So deadlock prevention provides a set of methods to ensure that at least one of the necessary condition cannot hold. Deadlock can be prevented if any one of the mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption and circular conditions cannot hold. Any one of the, remember, right? Deadlock necessary conditions means all the 4 should be there for making the deadlock. But for preventing, by making any one of them false, we can make sure that there is a deadlock prevention. Right? Deadlock can be prevented if any one of the mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption and circular wait conditions cannot hold. Now, let's see. Is it possible to hold the mutual exclusion condition? Right? Let's see one by one. Let's see with the mutual exclusion. So the mutual exclusion condition must hold when at least one resource must be non-shareable. Right? The mutual exclusion condition must hold when at least one resource must be non-shareable. Yes or no? Mutual exclusion ante enti? At a time only one process can use the resources. So to hold this, at least one resource must be non-shareable. But more these days, most of the resources are shareable resources. These days, most of the resources are, right, non-shareable. Sorry, most of the resources are shareable resources. So that is the reason it is not possible to prevent the deadlock using the mutual exclusion condition. Right? We cannot prevent deadlock by denying the mutual exclusion condition because some resources are by default non-shareable. Right? You are getting me? We cannot prevent the deadlock by denying the mutual exclusion condition because some resources by default are non-shareable. That means we cannot false this condition. We cannot hold this condition, right? So for example, if you take the mutex lock, it can be simultaneously shared by several processes, that is shareable. You have a printer, which is a resource where only one process can use it. There you cannot share it. That is not shareable, right? So that is the reason you can say that mutual exclusion is not possible for the deadlock prevention, right? Now, coming to this hold and wait. When it is coming to the hold and wait, what do you mean by hold and wait means one process should hold one resource and as well it should wait for the other resources, right? Here we must guarantee that whenever a process requests a resource, it does not hold any other resources. How we are making this false? Whenever any process is requesting for a resource, it does not hold any other resources. We should make sure that. So for that, what we are doing, we are using some set of protocols. The first protocol is each process can request the resource and be allocated all its resources before it begins execution. That means we are going to allocate all the resources to the process before its execution, so that in the middle it will not request for the resources, no, when it is holding, and at the end it is going to release all the resources. So that way you can make this condition fail, hold and wait condition. So for that, what we are doing, in the first protocol, we are making sure that the process should get all its resources before its execution only. It should get all its resources before its execution only, and it will hold all the resources in the entire execution time, and once the process is completed, it will release all its resources. But what is the drawback with this protocol? Low resource utilization and starvation possible. What do you mean by low resource utilization? Why? Because let's consider a process requires 10 resources, right? And all 10 was given to the process at the beginning only. But among, take one example, it is holding a resource called printer, and it requires the printer only for the last 1 minute to take the print. But even though you are allocating that printer to the process in its entire execution time, that means here your resources are being idle for longer amount of time. So that is the drawback with this protocol. If you allocate all the resources at the beginning, definitely low resource utilization. Yes or no? We are allocating all the resources to the process, but it is not using all the resources all the time, right? The remaining time, the resources will be in the idle state. And starvation is also process. Sometimes this situation will come like a process will be waiting for the resource for longer amount of time. That will not be allocated because some other process is holding it, and it will not release until unless it executes. It is done with its execution part, right? So I can use another protocol here, right? I can use another protocol here. What that can be is, a process can be allowed to request the resources only when it has none, right? A process can be allowed to request the resources only when it has none. And a process can request for a resource when it is not holding any resources, right? A process may request some resources and use them. Before it can request any additional resources, it must release all the resources that is currently allocated. You are getting me? So these are the two conditions. One is at the beginning only we will give the resources. Second protocol is, what we do is, whenever any process wants to request any resources, first of all, it should not hold any of the resources. Right? It should not hold any of the resources. Then what it can do, it can, instead of getting all the resources at a time, it can request for the set of resources. So it will use those set of resources, then it will release those, and again it will request for the next set of resources. That means instead of giving 10 resources to the process at a time, first we will give 5. After using those 5, it will release all those 5. Then it will be allocated with the next 5 resources. That is one more possibility for making this hold and wait fail, right? So the problems with this is low resource utilization and starvation, right? And why I am telling this starvation problem is, see, a process wants some 15 resources. It should not start until it gets all its resources that is it is requesting for, no, right? That means it should wait for longer amount of time to get all the resources to start the process, right? So these are the two drawbacks with the hold and wait. Now, no preemption. No preemption means what? You should not take the resources forcibly from the process. That is no preemption. Making that false means you should apply preemption here, right? To ensure that no preemption condition does not hold, we can use the following protocols. Initially, if a process is holding some resources and requesting another resources that cannot be immediately allocated to it, then what can be done? Then all resources that the process is currently holding are preempted, right? Those are preempted, and all the resources, including the process is requesting, all together will be allocated to the process. That is one protocol. You're getting me? I am holding 3 resources, and I am requesting for 1 resource. Then how you are doing this is, I will not be allocated with the process. Sorry, I am not allocated with the resource what I am requesting. Instead, what will be done is all my holding resources will be preempted, right? And all together means now the 4 resources will be allocated to me. Getting that? Right? If a process that is holding some resources and requesting another resource that cannot be immediately allocated to it, then all resources currently being held are released, right? You can preempt them, or else what you can do is when it is holding some resources and requesting for some other resources, then what you do is until it releases all the resources it is being used, the new resource will not be allocated to it. That is the second protocol. First protocol is, right? What happens is when it is holding some resources and requesting for some other resource, then all the currently used currently holded resources will be released, and including the new resource, all will be allocated to the process. That is one condition. And the second is you will not be immediately allocating the resources. Instead, what you are doing is you are giving some time for the process so that the process can release the resources which it is currently holding. These are the 2 protocols that are used for no preemption. Right? See, third point, if you can send, process will be restarted only when it can regain its old resources as well as the new ones that it is requesting. Right? Clear, guys? Clear for you all? These 3, mutual exclusion, holding mutual exclusion, hold and wait, and holding this no preemption. That means making them false. Yes or no? Yes, right. Now coming to the circular wait. So for this, what we do is impose a total ordering of all resource types and require that each process request the resources in an increasing order of enumeration. Right? Increasing order of enumeration. So this I will explain you with an example. Let's consider I have a resource type R, right, which is having the instances R1, R2 to Rm, right, and n be the set of the natural numbers. What do you mean by this? N is, it is the count of the resources, right? So here I can represent a relation function, that is one-to-one relation function, as f is equal to R to n. What is our resource type? N is number. That means resource. What are the set of instances I have of the resource type R, right? The count. I have resources R1, R2, R3. No, if R1 is equal to 1 means I have only one instance of R1. R2 equal to 4 means I have 4 instances of resource type R2, that way, right? Now I can represent F for the different resources like tape drive, disk drive, and printer. Take an example, this tape drive, disk drive, and printer, right? Now F of tape drive is equal to 1. That means I have only one tape drive. F of disk drive is equal to 5. That means I have 5 disk drives. F of printer equal to 12. That means I have 12 printers available. I have 12 printers available, right? Now we can consider the following protocol to prevent the deadlock. How you are going to prevent it with the circular wait is, each process can request the resources only in an increasing order of enumeration. That is, a process can initially request any number of instances of a resource type Ri. Increasing order of enumeration ante entante, initially it can request for any number of instances of resource type Ri. But after that, a process can request the instances of resource type Rj if and only if f of Rj is greater than f of Ri. Right? Initially, it requested for the resource type Ri. It can request for any number of instances. But later on, if it wants to request for Rj, it should make sure that the number of instances of Rj must be greater than the number of instances of Ri. then only the RJ is allocated to the process PI. Consider P1 undi, right? First R1 resource request chesindi. Any 2 instances unnai. That resource process P1 requested and they were given to P1. But after that, it want the resource type R2. When R2 will be allocated or assigned to P1 is when the number of instances of R2 must be more than the number of instances of R1. Ante R1 instances 2 unnai, R2 instances 4 unnai. Then only the P1 is allowed to request for the resource type RJ, R2 here. If R2 is having only one instance, now here the P1 will not be allowed to request for the resource type RJ. You are getting my point? Yes. When the resource can be allocated or when a process is allowed to request the resources. Yes, right? Initially it can request for the resource having any number of instances, but later on if it wants to request for a resource, make sure that it is having more number of instances than the previous resource instances. If and only if f of rj is greater than f of ri. Example, a process that wants to use tape drive and printer at the same time, right? So it first requests the tape drive and then request the printer, right? ఇక్కడ రెండు ఉన్నాయమ్మా. When it is seeing two things, అంటే టేప్ డ్రైవ్ ఉంది, ప్రింటర్ ఉంది, రైట్? సో ఇక్కడ టేప్ డ్రైవ్ కి ఇన్స్టాన్సెస్ ఎక్కువ ఉన్నాయి, ప్రింటర్ కి ఒకటే ఉంది. అప్పుడు విచ్ ఇట్ షుడ్ ఫస్ట్ రిక్వెస్ట్? First it means when see I can say అక్కడ resources ఉన్నాయి, I require all the resources, but initially what resource can be given to me is the resource with the more instances will be given to me first. Alternatively, we can require that a process requesting an instance of resource type rj must have released any resources type ri such that f of ri is greater than or equal to f of rj. ఒకవేళ f of ri is greater than or equal to f of rj అనుకోండి, then what it has to do is if it wants to request for the resource type rj, first it should release the instances of the resource type ri when ri is greater than rj. You are getting me? You are two conditions you should. When it wants to request a resource, then its f of rj should be greater than f of ri. But if it wants to request for a resource, if f of ri is greater than rj, then it should release first the instances of ri. Then only it will be. You are getting me, guys? See, go through the notes once again, or else go through the textbook or whatever after the class, so that you can understand it better, right? Please go through it for this deadlock prevention mark, right? Please go through it for the deadlock prevention, right? Once you may give a read for that, then it will be easy for you to understand, right? And one more thing, here one more point you should remember. If several instances of the same resource type are needed, a single request for all of them must be issued. At a time you can request for the resource. ఇప్పుడు నేను R1 లో 4 instances ఉన్నాయి. I want all the instances, then I with a single request to R1 I can get the instances. So what are the disadvantages with the deadlock prevention is it leads to low resource utilization and the system throughput will be reduced. So these are the two disadvantages or drawbacks with the deadlock prevention. Clear for you all deadlock prevention, so that I can move to deadlock avoidance. Yes, If you are clear with this prevention, then we can move to deadlock avoidance. Shall we move to deadlock avoidance? Yes. Now coming to this deadlock avoidance, right? So in the deadlock avoidance, the process first to inform the operating system about their maximum allocation of resources to be requested and used during its lifetime. So for that, what we do is, then avoid cheyadaniki, what we are doing is, we are informing to the processes that they should inform to the operating system that what is its maximum allocation of the resources in its lifetime, right? దానికి ఏమేమి రిసోర్సెస్ కావాలి, ఎంతసేపు కావాలి, రైట్? All has to be informed to the operating system, right? So it requires that system has some additional a priori information available, right? అంటే ఏంటంటే here operating system should know that what are the resources that are available in the system and number of instances, and it should make a note of that. Whenever any process is requesting, the operating system will make a note that which resource is allocated to what process, right? All that information will be available with the operating system for the deadlock avoidance, right? With this information, the operating system can decide for each request whether the resource will be granted immediately or the process should wait for resources. Then when the operating system is having all the information, right, OS will decide, that is, by giving the request, will it lead to the deadlock or not. The OS will check before granting the permission for the process to use the resource ni process allocate chese munde, every time it will check for the condition. If it is leading to the deadlock, then OS will not issue the resource to the process immediately. It will make the process wait for some time, right? It will make the process wait for some time to avoid the deadlock, right? So if you see the points here, it is simplest and most powerful model, requires that each process declare the maximum number of resources of each type that it may need. So whenever a process is starting, it should inform that maximum number of resources of each time it requires. Daniki em kavalo avanni cheppali. Then it is dynamically examine the resource allocation state to ensure that there can never be a circular wait. And ఏంటంటే whenever a process is requesting for the resource, it will check for the condition whether it is leading to the circular wait or not. If it is leading to the circular wait, then it will not give the permission. It will not allow the process to use the resource. That means that resource is not allocated to the process, right? Now, resource allocation state is defined by the number of available and allocated resources and the maximum demand of the process. So, ఇక్కడ మన resource allocation state, how you are going to do it is, right? Number of available and allocated resources. So, for each resource type, it will maintain that ఎన్ని available ఉన్నాయి, ఎన్ని allocate అయి ఉన్నాయి, and what is the maximum demand of the process, right? So, by making use of these things, right, the OS will decide what action to be taken so that the deadlock will be avoided, right? Now, algorithms for the deadlock avoidance. Algorithms for the deadlock avoidance, right? So a deadlock avoidance algorithm dynamically examines the resource allocation state to ensure that a circular wait condition can never exist. So we will be using a resource allocation state algorithm for making sure that the circular wait condition will never exist. And a resource allocation state, right? A resource allocation state is defined by the number of available resources and allocated resources and maximum demand of the resources. So how you are going to take this resource allocation state is, it is defined by the number of available resources and number of allocated and maximum demand, right? So there are three algorithms that are designed for the deadlock avoidance. One is safe state, the second one is resource allocation graph, and the third one is Banker's algorithm. save state algorithm, resource allocation graph algorithm, and bankers algorithm. So let's start with the save state algorithm, right? Let's see with the save state algorithm, right? So if the system can allocate the resources to each process up to its maximum in some order and still avoid a deadlock, then the state is called save state. అంటే ఏంటంటే if the process is requesting for the resources, so అది request చేసిన resources లో by allocating the maximum number of resources to the process, right, and we can make sure that the deadlock is not happening, that state is called save state, right? You're getting me? The process is requesting 10 resources, but at maximum we can allocate 6 resources and we can make sure the deadlock is not happening. But if seventh one, if you are allocating, if that is leading to the deadlock, then we can say that the system is entering into the non-safe state, unsafe state. So unsafe state loki veltundi ante then we will not allocate the resource to the process. You're getting me? A system is in safe state only if there exists a safe sequence. If the processes are executing in a safe sequence, then only I can say that a system is in safe state, right? So the sequence of the processes P1, P2 to Pn is a safe sequence for the current allocation state, right? If for each process Pi, the resource request that Pi can still make can be satisfied by the currently available resources plus the resources held by all Pj with j less than or equal to I. So this is the protocol, ma. You can I try to read this, you will understand, right? What do you mean by safe state algorithm is, we should make sure that the process is in the safe state by giving them maximum number of resources that are possible for the allocation and making sure that there is no deadlock. It is not entering into the deadlock state, right? So when a process requests an available resource, system must decide if immediate allocation leaves the system is in safe state or not, right? System is in safe state if there exists a sequence P1 to Pn of all processes, right? All the processes. Is the system such that for each Pi, the resources that Pi can still request can be satisfied by the currently available resources plus the resources held by Pj with j less than or equal to I. ఎప్పుడు మనం సిస్టమ్ సేఫ్ స్టేట్ లో ఉంది అంటామంటే when you have the sequence, ఈ మనం ప్రాసెసెస్ ని ఈ సీక్వెన్స్ లో ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నాం P1, P2 up to Pn, right? So when you can say your system is in safe state is, you can allocate all the resources of Pi, you can allocate all the resources of Pi, right, with the currently available resources, and what are the resources that are available in the system, plus the resources held by all the Pj with j is less than or equal to I, right? ఇప్పుడు P1, P2, P3 ఇట్లా సేఫ్ సీక్వెన్స్ అన్నాను. ఎప్పుడు ఇది సేఫ్ సీక్వెన్స్? టేక్ ది ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఫర్ P2. P2 is requesting some resources. So you can allocate all the resources of P2 with the available resources in the system plus the resources that are held by P1. Why? Because once P1 is completed, it will release all its resources, no? P1 will release all its resources. So with these released resources plus available resources, if you can satisfy the request of the P2, then you can say that the system is in safe state. Clear? You understand that point? Yes. That is, if Pi resources needs are not immediately available, then Pi can wait until all Pj have been finished. అంటే ఏంటి? P1 resources అన్ని immediate గా అవైలబుల్ లేవనుకోండి, then Pi should wait until all Pj have finished. అంటే ఇక్కడ ఎక్కడో P3 కావాలి, రైట్? సో P3 కి కావాల్సిన రిసోర్సెస్ అన్ని అవైలబుల్ లేవనుకోండి, P3 should wait until P1, P2 are completed. When Pj is finished, Pi can obtain needed resources, execute, return all resources and terminate. P3 ఉంది ఇక్కడ. P3 ఎప్పుడైతే రిసోర్సెస్ వచ్చాయో P3 will be given with all resources, it will get executed and it will release all the resources and terminate it. Then P4 will obtain all its resources. అంటే ఏంటంటే you have to make sure that you should execute the processes in a sequence, right? The sequence should be safe. When I can say it is safe? When it is satisfying all the conditions, right? Clear for you all? Yes, ma? Yes, okay, fine. Now, here I want to discuss some points, ma. If there is no safe sequence exist, right, then we can say the system is said to be unsafe. మనం సేఫ్ సీక్వెన్స్ లో రిసోర్సెస్ అలా అలొకేట్ చేయలేకపోతున్నాం అనుకోండి, రైట్, యూ కెన్ సే దట్ ద సిస్టమ్ ఈస్ ఎన్ అన్సేఫ్ స్టేట్, రైట్. సో ఐ వాంట్ టు డిస్కస్ సమ్ పాయింట్స్ హియర్. ఏ సేఫ్ స్టేట్ ఈస్ నాట్ ఎ డెడ్లాక్ స్టేట్ and a deadlock state is an unsafe state. Remember, safe state lo undi ante enti ante that is not a deadlock state. Safe state lo unnanta varaku there is no possibility for the deadlock, but once the system is entered into deadlock, then you can say it is not in the safe state, it is in the unsafe state. An unsafe state may lead to a deadlock, but not all unsafe states are deadlocks. If possible, take these points, ma. సిస్టమ్ సేఫ్ స్టేట్ లో ఉంది అంటే దెర్ ఇస్ నో డెడ్లాక్. డెడ్లాక్ ఉంది అంటే అన్సేఫ్ స్టేట్ లో ఉన్నట్టు. అన్సేఫ్ స్టేట్ లో ఉంటే మాత్రం డెడ్లాక్ అని కాదు. ఇట్ మే లీడ్ టు డెడ్లాక్ ఆర్ ఇట్ మే నాట్ లీడ్ టు డెడ్లాక్, రైట్? Now, as long as the safe state is safe, the operating system can avoid unsafe and deadlock states. System safe state lo ఉన్నంత వరకు the OS can avoid unsafe and deadlock states. But in an unsafe state, the OS cannot prevent the process from requesting the resources in such a way that a deadlock occurs. Unsafe state lo system వచ్చింది అంటే ఏంటంటే here there is nothing in the operating system hands. The OS cannot prevent the processes from requesting the resources in such a way that a deadlock occurs. Behavior of the process controls unsafe states. Behavior of the processes controls the unsafe state. Yes, these are the points what I'm trying to tell you here. If a system is in safe state, no deadlock. If a system is in unsafe state, possibility of the deadlock, right? How it is going to avoid the deadlock is it should ensure that a system will never enter a unsafe state. This is the thing. Until the system is in the safe state, there is no deadlock. If it entered to unsafe state, right? If it entered to unsafe state, definitely there is a possibility for the deadlock. Avoidance algorithms here. Single instance of the resource type అనుకోండి, you can simply use the resource allocation graph. ఎలా అంటే సింగిల్ ఇన్స్టాన్సెస్ ఉన్నాయనుకోండి, యూ రిమూవ్ ది ఇన్స్టాన్సెస్ అండ్ ఇఫ్ ద ప్రాసెసెస్ ఆర్ మేకింగ్ ఎ లూప్, దెన్ డెఫినెట్లీ దేర్ విల్ బి ఏ డెడ్ లాక్. మల్టిపుల్ ఇన్స్టాన్సెస్ ఉన్నాయనుకోండి, దెన్ యూ ఆర్ సపోజ్ టు యూస్ ది బ్యాంకర్స్ అల్గరిథం, రైట్? Here, resource allocation graph algorithm. Can we see the algorithm today? Yes, it will take only 5 to 10 minutes. We can discuss this. Now, resource allocation graph algorithm. So, in this algorithm, we use 3 edges, request edge, assignment edge, and claim edge. Instead of means along with your request edge and assignment edge, right? We will be using an edge called claim. What is that is? Claim edge Pi to Rj indicates that Pi may request the resource Rj at some time in the future. Present kaadu, it is not requesting now, but we are assuming that it may request the resource Rj at some time in the future, right? So here the climb edge resembles ఏనా ఒక్క నిమిషం 5 minutes now. Yes. So the climb edge here resembles a request edge in direction, but is represented by a dashed line. Climb edge ante entante, let me go to this PPT. Right here, the climb edge is nothing but, right? It resembles a request edge only. PI to RJ ne untundi, but it will be in the dashed line or dotted line, right? When the process PI request RJ, then the climb edge is converted to a request edge. మనం ఇనిషియల్ గా అది రిక్వెస్ట్ చేయొచ్చు అని అస్యూమ్ చేసి then we'll put the claim edge, but whenever it is requesting, you convert the claim edge to the request edge, right? When a request RJ is released by PI, the assignment edge is converted to the claim edge. You are getting me? Initially it will be claimed, but when the PI is requesting RJ, claim edge is converted to the request edge, and when the resource is released by PI, then the assignment edge is converted to a claim edge again. So the resources must be claimed a priori in the system, that is, before the process PI starts executing, all its claim edges must already appear in the resource allocation graph. సో నాకు ఫ్యూచర్ లో ఇవి కావాలి అని ప్రాసెస్ చెప్పింది అనుకోండి, రైట్? కరెంట్ గా వీఆర్ నాట్ అసైనింగ్ ఆల్ ద రిసోర్సెస్ ఎట్ ఏ టైమ్. ఇనిషియల్లీ వీఆర్ అలొకేటింగ్ సమ్ రిసోర్సెస్ అండ్ ద రిమైనింగ్ వీఆర్ మేకింగ్ దెమ్ యాజ్ ది క్లెయిమ్ ఎడ్జెస్, రైట్? ఇవి నాకు కావాలి అంటుంది ప్రాసెస్, రైట్? దెన్ వెన్ ద ప్రాసెస్ యాక్చువల్లీ నీడ్స్ దెమ్, ఇట్ విల్ రిక్వెస్ట్. వెన్ ఇట్ ఈస్ రిక్వెస్టింగ్, ఇట్ విల్ బి మేడ్ యాజ్ ది రిక్వెస్ట్ ఎడ్జ్. ఆ రిక్వెస్ట్ తర్వాత when we are assigning, make it assignment. Then after the assignment రిలీజ్ అయింది అనుకోండి, మళ్ళీ దాన్ని we will make it as claimed edge, right? So the resources must be claimed a priori in the system, that is, before PI starts execution, all its claim edges must already appear in the resource allocation graph. Suppose, take this example. Suppose, right, PI request resource RJ. PI request resource RJ. Now, the request can be granted only if the converting the request edge to an assignment edge. The request can be granted only if the converting the request edge to assignment edge does not result in the formation of a cycle in the resource allocation graph. ఇక్కడ మీకు డాటెడ్ లైన్స్ ఉన్నాయి, రైట్? సో when you are converting the dotted line into the straight line, we will make sure that it is not making the loop. ఇక్కడ చూడండి, if you see this diagram, right, P1 is claiming that it require R2 sometime, right? Now when the PI is requesting R2, right, when this R2 will be given to PI, when we make an assignment edge from R2 to PI, if it is making a loop, then that resource will not be allocated to PI ma. If it is not making the loop, then only we will be giving. You are getting me? Initially, what are the request edge, what are the future requests are there, వాటిని మనం we will be putting in the dotted line, right? Then after, right, it is requesting. When it is requesting, if you assign that, దాన్ని మనం allocate చేస్తున్నాం, assign చేసాం అనుకోండి, if it is making a loop, we will not be assigning that request to the process, right? We will not be allocating that. If no cycle exists, then the allocation of the resource will leave the system in the safe state. If the cycle is found, then the allocation will put the system in the unsafe state. In that case, PI will have to wait for its request to be satisfied. As a loop చేస్తుంది అనుకోండి, it has to wait until any one of the arrow or any one of the edge is disconnected. Until one of the process is releasing a resource, right? ఇక్కడ చూడండి, PI to R1 is there. So in this you can easily see, right? So you have P1, you have ఇక్కడ చూడండి, R2 assigned to P2, P2 requesting R1, and R1 is assigned to P1, and now P1 is requesting R2. But if I assign this, right, if I allow that P1 to request for R2, it is leading to deadlock. It is making a loop. Then what I do is, I will make this request wait for some time so that P2 will release R2. Once P2 is releasing R2, if I assign R2 to P1, there will not be any deadlock, right? There will not be any deadlock. So in this example, chudandamma, consider the resource allocation graph. Suppose P2 requesting R2, right? ఇది పైన diagram అనుకుంటా. Yes, P2 requesting R2. R2 is currently free, but still we cannot allocate it to P2 since this will create a cycle in the graph, right? Why? Because here P1 is also requesting for R2, right? P1 is also requesting for R2. So if we assign R2 to P1 and if you allow P2 to request for R2, P2 is requesting for R2, then definitely it is making a loop, right? So very simple, don't get confused with the diagrams, very simple ma. So we will be using a climb edge here, dotted line lo pettunnam. When the dotted line will be marked as the straight line is, when the dotted line is marked as the straight line is when it is not making any loops. That's all. Clear? అంటే ఇప్పుడు రిక్వెస్ట్ ఎడ్జ్ ని అసైన్మెంట్ ఎడ్జ్ గా చేస్తున్నాం అనుకోండి, if that is making a loop, then we will not be allowing that. Instead, we will make the process wait for some time so that we are avoiding the deadlock. Clear? Yes, ma? Clear for you all? Yes. So in the next class, we will see the Banker's algorithm. And once again, I'll give the briefing of this resource allocation also, right? But make sure that you are going through the notes before coming to the next class. Right? Textbook anna refer cheyandi. You read it, give a read once, right? So that you will understand the topics better, right? So thank you one and all. I can see only the 30 members ma. Now can I take the attendance? PD